Question one on the ballot says, thumbs up on casino. Yes, no. The no folks are here. The yes folks, we can't find them unless you want to watch a TV commercial.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Great to have you aboard. Thanks for watching tonight. I think we probably are getting off a little bit earlier this evening on the midnight segment. Of course, at 7:30. We're on time as mostly usual, but the World Series kind of pushed us back a little bit last night on Fox. Earlier start due to weather in Cleveland, Game 2. We'll talk about the World Series in a second. Welcome aboard. It is a pleasure to have you. The No on Casino folks in Tiverton are represented by one of our guests tonight. The yes on casino folks, I guess, just feel their $300,000+ that they've spent on convincing you to vote yes is enough. They are unavailable. There's nobody who can come talk to us. They are representing the third largest revenue stream that we have here in Rhode Island. They are cocky. They are not cooperative. And you should know that. In the meantime, let's go to the rundown. Yeah. Anyway, it's frustrating. I mean, you should have lots of information, not just do 30-second commercials, don't you think? Trump, dump, headlines, just throw them at me one after the other. Focus on the GOP leaders now. There's so much disparity and so much angst between the party right now. It is a divided House, and of course, Democrats are seizing on that as well. Second headline, Trump bobbles, attack on Obamacare. We'll cover that here in our news package. This is interesting. Clinton aides are kind of shown to have really been very concerned about the email controversy with the Hillary Clinton server problem, but there seems to be a divide between the old guard that kind of protects Hillary and the new campaign folks who are saying, what is going on with that? It's an interesting read, no doubt. Of course, it's all because of Russian espionage. And Donald Trump now suggests that the president ought to be investigated because he received emails from that server, yet the president says he found out for the first time on television like all of us. Here's the latest.
Job-killing Obamacare is just one more way that our system is rigged, believe me.
In Tallahassee, Donald Trump said an average premium increase of 25% disguises the real damage of Obamacare.
They know that's not true. It's much more. You're going to have 60, 70, 80, 90%.
3 states will see premium increases over 60%, with changes ranging from a 145% spike in Phoenix to a 4% decrease in Indianapolis. Adjusted taxpayer-funded subsidies will help reduce some sticker shock.
We get rid of Obamacare, and we come up with a plan that's so much less expensive.
Trump offered no alternative to the law, but traveled to his Doral Golf Club to say this about its effect on his staff.
All of my employees are having a tremendous problem with Obamacare.
The club's general manager quickly corrected Trump, telling reporters more than 95% of the staff is insured by the hotel.
Maybe there's a few that are insured through Obamacare, but very, very few.
Tuesday night, Trump clarified.
It's a small group, but it's a group that's having tremendous problems.
And as much as Trump tried to stay on message, he could not resist Vice President Joe Biden's recent taunt.
The press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
Did you see where Biden wants to take me to the back of the barn? Me. He wants it. I'd love that. I'd love that. Mr. Tough Guy.
All right, well, listen, Joe Biden started that, and Donald Trump's persona is such that he can't resist, whatever. Now, that's locker room talk. That's real locker room talk, seems to me, and it's insignificant. We talked last night about the Obamacare stuff. He doesn't even know how many of his employees are on it or off it. Why would he pay attention to those details, 13 days away from the election? In the meantime, there is some tightening of the polling data in certain places, giving Trump a possible path.
Trump is opening his brand new luxury hotel here in Washington, D.C. The morning ceremony at Trump International Hotel also provided a stage for some protesters.
It's up to the Trump Organization who gets to stand on this public plaza.
Trump's short break from the campaign trail comes as early voting is underway in many states.
There are 13 days left. Most Americans are going to cast their votes on Election Day, and we know we're going to win this election because enthusiasm, momentum.
Trump's new hotel is less than a mile from the White House, but the route from here to the Oval Office could go through Florida.
The path would be much harder without Florida, and that's why you're going to see him, but we're going to win Florida, so it's not even part of the calculation.
The latest poll in Florida shows Trump edging ahead of Clinton, but the 2-point lead is within the survey's margin of error. Hillary Clinton has 2 stops in Florida today where she's urging supporters to take advantage of early voting.
It's going to be a close election. Pay no attention to the polls. Don't get complacent, because we've got to turn people out.
Clinton's staff surprised her with a cake to celebrate her 69th birthday.
I'm not sure that the 69th birthday thing is an advantage to her, but you can't help being 69, right? 69 is 69. I don't know. I just don't feel a lot of motivation coming out of Hillary Clinton suggesting, don't get complacent. I mean, at this point, there's kind of a, I don't know, flat-footedness about the Hillary Clinton campaign. I'm sure it'll be compensated for with a get out the vote, traditional get out the vote operation. They've got more field offices than Carter's got pills. Trump has none. But in the primaries, he didn't need it. He's doing well in Ohio, dead even, and he's skoshing ahead in Florida, depending on the poll that you're looking at. But then again, he's got problem in traditional red states, so it's a very confusing map. It'll be over in 2 weeks. That's for certain. Let's come back home and talk about some numbers when it comes to voting. This headline in the Providence Journal a couple of days ago, and then another one today, kind of causes some stir. Jess, if we can go back to the first one, there's Joe Trillo, the chairperson honorary for Donald Trump, talking about voter fraud. He says Donald Trump talks about voter fraud. If this is the case, that there's many people, who are on the rolls or unaccounted for, what are the safeguards that they can't vote in 2 places? Well, Joe, you know one of the safeguards is that it's illegal to vote in 2 places. And this number represents the difference between those that they know are around and those who have been previously registered, meaning these are people who either died or have moved. And it is a huge number, no doubt. Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea, who was on the program a couple of weeks ago, was talking about all the advances that she's made in technology. But if you read the story, you see that it's a multi-year process to wean some of these names off the list and to create a better level of accuracy. If it gives you any pause or comfort, in 2014, the number was about 180,000, and the real number, when you do some calculations and read the story in the Journal to find out, is closer to 250,000, and there was no alarm in any kind of massive voter fraud. There's a difference between individuals who will fraudulently vote from time to time, and hardly can deny that happens, and systematic voter fraud. They're 2 different things. Anyway. Infrastructure funds, very interesting thing going on in the city of Providence. We talked about this at length with Dan McGowan, our WPRI.com crack journalist last week. There's a $40 million bond for road improvement in the city that has been part of a big debate between the administration, Mayor Elorza, and the city council. Everybody was on board, but then the council said, listen, we want half the funds to be allocated by our own jurisdictional decisions, meaning we are the councilors in our own wards, and we want to pick and choose the roads and projects that need to be handled through this bond. Elorza said, well, that's like creating a slush fund. And for the first time in a long time, I agree with Jorge Elorza. So the council comes up, the leadership comes up, Councilor Ponte, the president's got his own financial problems, serious financial and legal problems, suggests that, well, you know what, we can't afford $40 million, it's too much borrowing. Well, if they were able to line their at least constituent project pockets, it wouldn't have been too much money. They're phonies. So Elorza is now thinking, you know what, I'll go outside the traditional means of a vote on November 8th for this bond, and I'll check one of the province agencies where I can kind of shuffle that money through. The problem is he's going to have to come back to the council to get the actual expenditures approved. And, you know, some would say, you know what, maybe I'll just, if I'm a lawyer, maybe I'll just take care of each individual counselor as we go. Not necessarily with a brown bag, but with the projects they're looking for anyway. It's a mess. City of Providence and leadership, well, the two don't match up. All right, on a much lighter note, the Cubbies were shut out last night in the freezing cold in Cleveland. By the way, it's going to be a cold World Series period because the temperatures and the forecast certainly look that way. Yeah, that pitcher did a heck of a job for Cleveland last night, huh? That is one of the multiple shutouts that Cleveland has had in this playoff run. In fact, they've only lost one game. So they are well rested in the bullpen. But you know what? They needed that win last night because the Cubbies have much more pitching talent as we embark on Game 2. 7:30, we don't know. Midnight, you already know. But the funny story here, Lex found this one. This is interesting. This guy, back in 1993, is this his high school yearbook? And his high school yearbook predicted that the Cubs would win the World Series in 2016. When somebody brought to his, reportedly when somebody brought it to his attention, he said, geez, I forgot I even wrote that. This guy reportedly will be royalty in Chicago, if that prediction is correct, and they'll be looking for all sorts of further predictions, not just about baseball, but life in general. That's pretty good, don't you think? All righty, question 1 is on the ballot. Let's take a look at a couple of headlines here regarding this all-important financial question. The folks who own Twin River say we need to move from Newport to Tiverton to save all of our collective rear ends. Cameron Ramsay is a leader of the No Tiverton Casino Group. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me, Dan, here.
Nice to have you. You lead a group of how many?
So the actual page has about 600 people. We've been meeting for weeks now.
The page is a Facebook
page, and we have the No Tiverton Casino website also. The group is meet frequently, about once a week, about 20 to 30 people. So far, they've been doing door knocking and talking to their neighbors, describing more than just the 30-second advertisement that's been given so far.
What is your single beef?
The revenue studies. They first published one revenue study in early April, and that's what the House and the Town Council approved. And then the second revenue study was just published in September, and the revenue was down 38%. That makes it so that the state will have to pay the $3 million to the town. And then so far, that revenue study's kind of vanished off of the face of the journals, advertising, and speaking, and they've just brought back
the original projections had the revenues higher.
The original projections had the revenue between 47 and $70 million. The new projections,
which is a wide spectrum, by the way.
Yes. And the new spectrums have it between 30 million and 53 million.
And how does that affect the Tiverton take?
The Tiverton take depends on the $3 million.
Percentage of that money, correct?
Yes. So 1% will be coming from the slot machines, and 1.4% will be coming from the tables.
So the lower the revenue overall, the lower the take for Tiverton.
And then also the jobs, too, because a lot of those depend on tips.
All right, when we come back, we'll kind of lay out some of the issues here for you. Again, the yes on one folks are not, I don't know, not interested in coming and discussing this, which is something that, you know, aside from the issue itself, I hope you evaluate the issue on its own merits, Cameron's arguments and your own thoughts. But it ought to give you a little bit of pause to know that all they want to do is buy their advertising and not come here and debate and or discuss the issue. In the meantime, I got a great little thing for the weekend for you. The Bruno & Company auctioneers are back at it on Saturday, October 29th with a collectible session at 10:30 in the morning and antiques and fine art session at 12 p.m. They have a nice little wine and cheese party to preview the items the night before. You ought to go to their website and check it all out. You know, these folks, we've had them on the program before. They're really cool. I mean, if you've got a whole bunch of cool stuff in your home, you should let them know at that number, 533-9980, that you'd like them to review it. But if you're ready to bid and get into the action, it's this Saturday, October 29th. We'll be right back. If you're not familiar with the basic arguments already, here it is on question 1.
Lawns are sprinkled with signs like these. Vote no, check yes.
What we're proposing here is a convenience casino, a place that's easy to come spend a few hours and leave.
If question 1 is approved, Newport Grand Casino would be moved to a new facility 400 feet from the Massachusetts border.
We're more concerned about what happens outside the gate.
Reverend John Higginbottom is concerned about gambling addiction. He's also worried about an increase in crime and traffic that a casino might bring.
You're going to have 4,000 cars, and this is the Twin River estimate, coming to that facility every day.
Twin River CEO John Taylor says the new casino would create at least 500 new jobs and would generate about $50 million in annual state revenue, along with $4 million of Tiverton revenue each year.
We're optimistic that voters will be supportive on Election Day.
The only thing that's going to stop this casino is the people of Tiverton.
The casino must not only be approved statewide, it also has to pass in a separate local question on Tiverton ballots. The Associated Press found the casino proposal is the only question out of 7 dominating broadcast television airtime. The data also shows more than $370,000 has been spent on television advertisements supporting the proposal.
You say that the budget's much bigger, though.
It's almost at $2 million now. It's at 1.9.
And they're spending that money in what places?
Advertising. I almost don't want to say that because they'll throw another $1 million at me.
Give me your objective pulse of the people of Tiverton.
The people in Tiverton are very much worried about their housing values. People don't move to Tiverton with the hope that a casino is going to come to town. They move to Tiverton because we have beaches, farming, open communities.
Are you a homeowner?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Lived in Tiverton now for 20 years, which a lot of people think is still new for a resident. They're worried about the crime rate, the housing values. The National Realtors Association predicts that your housing value will go down by 10% when a community has a casino built into it.
You also concerned, like the Reverend, about crime and traffic and all that?
Traffic is a very big issue. The traffic study that this is based on is in 2003. There's been a lot more development in Tiverton, a lot more retail spaces. There's promising a rotary that was promised to us many years ago. I go to Cape Cod. Rotaries don't help traffic. Crime-wise, there's a serious crime issue that might be happening. Twin River is 7 to 8 miles away from Central Falls and Pawtucket. This casino is going to be 300 feet away from Fall River. Fall River is a great town.
Well, it's an interesting point, because I was going to say, we hear nothing from the folks in Lincoln about any kind of neighborhood problems and the like. You're telling me the proximity to a more urban center is going to provide it?
It's going to provide, Fall River has a worse crime rate than Pawtucket and Central Falls does. And it's also not fair for the Fall River residents that Twin River is certainly planning to market to. These type of convenience casinos are marketed to the elderly and the impoverished. It's not a high-end kind of tax for our area. We don't have the infrastructure for a casino. Tiverton has 3 policemen on duty at one time. Supposedly we have 4 traffic lights. I haven't been able to find the other one.
You're good. Well, clearly there's going to have to be some beefing up of infrastructure support and human security issues. I mean, Twin River has not really ever had a security problem either. You're suggesting that they're overestimating the safety issues in Tiverton?
Well, Twin River does have 16,000 calls that have to come from the Lincoln Police every year. A lot of it doesn't get reported in the news because the calls happen inside the building. The only time you see the headlines is when it happens in the parking lot, when the victim actually has to call 911 instead of the security heads.
Well, so if the same is the case in Tiverton, what's the big deal?
Well, because once it's handled inside, those people do have to leave the building. There's no prison at Twin River. Then it becomes either the towns of Tiverton or Fall River's issue.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the question. One question is for us, that's question 1, and then in Tiverton, it's question 8. Are they going to be very different? If they are, there's trouble. Stay with us. Cameron Ramsay is one of the leaders on No Tiverton Casino. This headline appeared a little while back. I thought it was interesting. Casino opponents divided. What happened? There was some outside money coming in, and some of the clergy types felt uncomfortable with it.
I'll be honest with you, most people had no idea. I actually did a press thing last week where I had to have Father confirm that I wasn't one of those people. I'm just a town resident. I mean, Tiverton has to be ready for that. When you have shady industries in some ways, you're going to be having outside money happen. It's happening in Massachusetts.
Well,
it's happening
listen,
nationwide.
listen, I've been watching casino questions for a long time. You have these folks who are just passionate like you, who end up actually being front people for competing casinos in the region. So you're not a front person for competing casinos in the region?
No, not at all.
This is your first political experience?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was planning on handing this off to somebody, waiting to find someone else to hand this off to. I would rather not be doing this right now.
Well, are you all by yourself?
No, there's a group of 20 people.
Why are you spokesing by yourself?
Yes.
Why?
Because I probably have the backstory knowledge the most. I've been doing this informational gathering for the last 16 months.
It's also not easy.
No.
There's a lot of forces at work here who want this to be a fait accompli, correct?
Yes, yes. Ironically, it's even hard just to find information that's clear in the news right now, just because they're having misinformation on the revenue studies, the job numbers. Originally, they were saying that the average person was be making $50,000. The new revenue says it's going to be $40,000. They also cut those jobs to part-time. And when they asked Patty Doyle, she said, our employees prefer part-time jobs.
Patty Doyle is a spokesperson for Twin River, who is part of the wholly uncooperative team on question 1. Doesn't feel like she or anybody else needs to come here and explain why we need yes on 1. Of course, in Tiverton, it's yes on or no on 8.
On 8.
Do you find that to be an asset or a liability?
It's definitely a liability. I think the state has to, at some point, ask, do they really need to have 8 questionnaires for the state, for the people to have to study on?
So there won't be a duplicate in Tiverton. In other words, the Tiverton voters
will have to vote twice.
Oh, they will have to vote twice.
They will have the number 1 on the ballot because they are a state.
So there's the state. You know, it's going to be really interesting to see.
You could vote twice differently.
Well, to see if they match up. It'll be really interesting to see if the voter acumen is there to remember what they did on the statewide
That's been
ballot.
when we're doing our outreach to make sure that everyone understands that it's 8. And if they vote on 1 and don't go any farther to 3 pages down, we've lost.
Right, because you have to weigh in on the local referendum one way or the other. It has to be approved in Tiverton in addition to statewide, correct? Are you making any grand predictions as to what the pulse of the Tiverton people are going to be?
The wave has been changing over the last 3 weeks. I'll be honest, getting attention.
Nickel for every politician or advocate for an issue told me that in front of an election I'd be rich, but tell me why.
I was hoping I wasn't using any politician lines. We're finally getting closer to the deadline where the town's been doing some research. With the presidential debate, Kurt Schilling, yoga pants, it's very hard to get any information out. The town usually has only been seeing those 30-second commercials from representatives of different parts of the state. And then also when most of your state politicians are for it, it's a lot harder to get the opposite side of the story.
So?
Casinos hurt towns. Look at Delaware, look at Connecticut, look at Niagara Falls. The convenience casinos are...
I don't think it hurt. The folks in Lincoln would disagree with you. They like the revenue. They like that push. They like that extra...
Lincoln's broken promises time and time again. 2005, they promised they'd be getting rid of our car tax. How are we doing on that so far? In 2010, John Taylor promised that they'd be making $21,000 in table revenue. They've expanded the tables, and now they have poker, and they've never done it.
All right, well, listen, put on your yoga pants and come on the radio next week, and we'll spend some more time talking about this, all right?
Big yoga pants.
I appreciate your interest and your sense of humor on this. And of course, the seats are open for the Yes on 1 folks. 3rd largest revenue stream in Rhode Island, largest non-tax revenue stream, and they don't feel like they need to show up. Pretty disappointing. Stay tuned. Keep in mind that the Tiverton Casino is about replacing New Bedford. So the money and the projections are not necessarily brand new revenues. It's, maybe a skosh higher than what New Bedford, I should say what Newport, did I say New Bedford? Did I say Newport? Newport, I meant Newport is producing. So remember, do some homework on this question. It's not a big revenue gain, it's more about revenue protection. And that might be enough for you. Tomorrow, the folks who say no on all the money questions here on the show, you have a good night.